Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone attending in person, attending live, and on the recorded session. Welcome and congratulations to the LMSA on 50 years of excellent leadership among the LHS Plus in medicine. It's my pleasure today and a distinct honor to introduce to you Dr. Lisa Moreno-Walton. She's a professor of emergency medicine at Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center, and soon to be, as of May 1st, the Associate Dean for Diversity at Brody College of Medicine in Greenville, North Carolina. Dr. Moreno-Walton is also treasurer of the board of directors and now president of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. She holds a Doctor of Medicine degree, Master's of Science in Clinical Research, and is a Pride Research Scholar from the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Moreno is the recipient of the Society of Academic Emergency Medicine Marcus Martin Leadership Award, the Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Professionalism Award. She's part of the Council of Residency Directors, received the Distinguished Educator Award. At LSU, she has served as Director of Research, Director of Diversity, and Director of HIV and Hepatitis C virus testing, and holds a faculty appointment in the Department of Surgery at Tulane University. She's the recipient of many grants. Dr. Moreno has over 350 national and international presentations, 40 journal publications, 6 book chapters, and an authored textbook. Her research interests include HIV, violence prevention and treatment, diversity, and healthcare disparities. She designed and administers a culturally competent HIV prevention and testing program in New Orleans. She is a global health consultant and educator and has served in over 30 countries to support the development of research, violence treatment and prevention, and the elimination of healthcare disparities. And today we have the distinct honor of having her join us to help us organize our CV and portfolio for the purposes of promotion and tenure. Bienvenida, doctora.
Thank you so much, Doctora Romero. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this information, which is critical, as we've noticed already through the sessions that we've had thus far today, that Latinx individuals really need to start to learn how to promote ourselves so that we get promoted. I do get royalties from 2 textbooks that I have published with Springer International. I do have research funding. I do have consultation contracts with 2 foreign university schools of medicine, and I'm very biased. And I like to say that from the get-go. I'm biased towards the mission and vision statements of the organization I'm president of, the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. And I'm also very strongly biased towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. And so, of course, that colors everything that I talk about and everything that I do in my life. The objectives today, I want to outline for you the components of a high-quality CV and portfolio, because anybody can slap together a CV and portfolio, and many people do, and then those are the CVs and portfolios that reviewers get frustrated in looking at. So I want you to have a high-quality CV and portfolio. We'll also talk about how to pursue and achieve promotion in a timely fashion, because time is important. And we're going to explore how to highlight your Latinx specific contributions for promotional purposes, because this is our time. And we need to really promote what we have and who we are that is uniquely valuable to the institutions that we are serving. So what qualifies me? My own experience in promotion, I went from being a resident to a full professor in 10 calendar years, 10 academic years rather. That was my goal. I set that goal and I did it. It was hard. It was a lot of hard work, but to me, it was well worth it. I have a lot of experience mentoring. I've mentored over 350 students, residents, including pre-med students, medical students, residents, and junior faculty. And I referee approximately 15 promotions per year. So I have a lot of experience in this area. So let me talk about what a high quality CV is. First of all, just like when you go to publish a paper and you need to read the writer's instructions and format your manuscript the way the author's instructions say, you must format your CV according to your university format. You may not like it. I will tell you honestly, I think the LSU format is not an attractive format, and I don't find it very easy to negotiate as many of the other formats in other universities where I've served as a referee, but I have to use it. And I am about to go to a new university and have to rewrite my entire CV into that format, but I'm going to do it because it matters. It matters because this is what your dean is looking at. This is what your promotions committees are looking at. This is what they want to see you put out there when you're highlighting yourself as a representative of your university. I will also tell you, do not let other people do it. I'm moving to a position where I'm going to be the associate dean. I can hand my CV to an assistant and just tell them to reformat it. I'm not going to do that. This is my life. This is my career. We have to invest in our careers. And yes, this is going to take me for my 67-page CV. I'm going to sit there for like 8 hours, but I am going to make sure that I do it because this is about me. This is my life. And I urge you all to take that same responsibility and have that same investment in your CV. Now, ask to look at the CVs of persons who were most recently promoted to the rank you seek. That is really critically important. And do not be shy. People are willing to share their CVs with you. They'll ask you maybe not to pass it around to other people for whatever reason, but you want a CV that has been reviewed by the currently sitting promotion and tenure committee. A CV that was reviewed by a different promotion and tenure committee with different personalities there, different individuals there, people who have different values, is not going to count. As you want someone who was promoted by the P&T committee that you are going to be going before. And you want somebody who is within your department as well as within other departments, because you want to know what is valued when someone from emergency medicine is coming up for promotion, or what is valued when a surgeon is coming up for promotion. You want to be able to look at those things. Look at least 3, at least 1 from your department, at least 1 from someone else's department, and then a 3rd, and get a sense of what the current P&T committee values so that you understand what to highlight in your portfolio. Ask somebody who holds your desired rank and is prominent in the university to review your CV with you. Now, I mean exactly what I'm saying. Do not hand them your CV or email your CV to them and ask them to review it. Either they are going to skim over it, or they may review it, but then the comments that they give back to you later are going to be somewhat edited, right? Because they review it and then they're going to give you comments later. Make an appointment with the person, sit down with your CV, go over it section by section, possibly even line by line, in real time with someone who holds your desired rank, and tell them, be brutally honest with me. Tell me where my strengths are. Tell me where my weaknesses are. You don't want to be putting your portfolio forward when you don't actually meet the requirements. Then schedule a meeting with someone who was promoted to the rank you seek in the most recent promotion cycle. So if I am applying now for 22, 23, then I want to look at somebody who got promoted in 21, 22, and I want to sit down with that person and ask them what the experience was like. Very, very, very valuable. What mistakes did they make previously, if they had possibly been rejected, and what did they correct, and what do they think worked for them? You want to ask them every question. Who wrote their letters, right? Because that matters too. Who writes your letters absolutely carries a lot of weight. What that person's reputation is. If there's someone who writes a letter for you who's a friend of the dean, if there's someone who writes letters for you and they write glowing letters for everybody, there is somebody in my field, in emergency medicine, literally, he's one of the most wonderful people on earth. His letters are worthless. He thinks everybody on earth is wonderful, and every physician is in the top 10% of emergency physicians, which is not possible, right? 90% are not in the top 10%. So everybody knows his letters have little value. So you want to get all this sense from someone who was recently promoted. Does your department have an editor? So my department actually does have an editor, and she goes over everything for format and grammar. She's not a physician. She's an English major, and she goes over everything for format and grammar. This can be especially helpful, especially if you are a Latinx person who was not born in the United States. Having a department editor is very, very helpful for you. If your department doesn't have an editor and you were not born in the US and your first language, most of us grew up either bilingual or speaking English and just Spanish at home. But if you grew up in a Spanish-speaking home or you were born in a country that's Spanish-speaking, it is critical to get somebody you trust then to go over and edit for you and make sure that all your grammar, punctuation, and formatting is the way that it needs to be for you to get promoted. It's really unfortunate, but because it is to some extent, xenophobia and racism, but people will toss aside something if they start seeing mistakes in it. Keeping your CV updated is critical. Again, I am speaking from personal experience. I went through a period of time between assistant and associate professor when I did not update my CV for 6 months. And I cannot tell you the pain that went into having to go back and figure out where I spoke, what the exact title of the presentation was, how to do my citation properly for my manuscripts, how to, et cetera. You get the picture. So update critically, strategically, deliberately. Use an electronic calendar, put down the exact title of the interview you gave, who you gave the interview with, what publication or what news program interviewed you. Put down everything exactly. I was asked to give grand rounds, the exact title of the grand rounds that I was asked to give, all on your electronic calendar. I try to update after every single presentation. So after I do this presentation tonight or tomorrow, I will add this to my CV. If your schedule is crazy and you're not able to do it that way, at least update monthly, Go back, look at your electronic calendar, see all the things that you did, and update your CV appropriately. Next, put the line items in the categories in which they belong according to your university. So for example, in my university, any interview that I give, even if I give an interview to a newspaper and it's a print interview, it goes under electronic media. So, and I guess it's maybe because things are often put online before they're actually printed, but that's how my university wants it done. So make sure that you are fitting in the categories, because if someone on the promotions committee has a particular interest in this particular thing, they are going to look in that area. So have it in the right area and do not duplicate stuff. I've seen people put CVs together and they put the same thing in like 3 different areas. If they're not 3 separate things, if they're not 3 separate presentations or 3 separate abstracts, and we know that sometimes what we do is we'll do a research study and we'll create 2 abstracts or 2 publications from it. That's fine. But don't take the exact same, I did a grand rounds presentation on mentorship, and I'm going to put that down under presentations, but I'm also going to put it down under mentoring. No, because when you look like that, it looks like you're padding your CV and trying to make yourself look better than you really are, and reviewers do not like that. However, that being said, make certain you get credit for everything. Now, I will tell you now, at this point in my career, I'm a full professor. I have a 67-page CV. I do not put down anything I do for my home institution. I do not put down if I'm a moderator. I do not put down if I'm, a panelist at a conference. I don't put any of that stuff down. Why? Because I don't need it. But when you're starting out, you need every single thing. I remember the first time I got asked to be a moderator at a conference. I was like freaking super excited. It's like, dude, these people think that I have some expertise in this area because they've asked me to sit there and be the moderator. And and they tell you, oh, you're going to be a moderator. If nobody asks any questions, you have to have questions that you're going to ask the panelists and or the presenters in your session. So people think you're an expert, or they know you're an expert. So put that down early in your career. I was asked to, I moderated. I was a moderator at this session, at this LMSA conference, or whatever conference it is, because then when you're being promoted from instructor to assistant professor, that's what they want to see, that you have name recognition, that people know, people in your region or in the country know that you're an expert in this area. So put all that stuff down early on, because you do need it and it does matter, and it feels good to be asked to do those things.
I'm gonna put that in my CV tomorrow.
All right.
That I'm moderating this session, Dr. Moreno. I want to just interrupt for a second to clarify on your previous slide. You noted don't put things more than once, but sometimes we do, for example, a research project that may generate an abstract,
Yes,
and a presentation,
yes,
and a publication. And so just to be clear for the folks that are listening in, is it okay to put the three?
Yes, those are three separate things, right? Those are three separate things. But so for example, if I'm giving this presentation, I shouldn't put this presentation down as a presentation and then also put it down as a mentoring activity, because I just did it once. But absolutely, you're 100% right. And the other thing that you're highlighting, which is important for our younger faculty to know, is this is what you should do. If you do a research project, you've got to present an abstract. And after you present the abstract, you've got to start telling people, I'm an expert in this area. I've done research in this area. Can I come and give grand rounds for you? And then you get another presentation, and then you publish it and you have a publication. And if you give grand rounds on the same topic in several different medical schools or several different departments, you put it down each time you do it, because it's a separate event. And get creative, change the title around a little bit so it doesn't look like you're just repeating the same thing over and over again. Get creative. So I did grand rounds on, on the impact of simulation training on students' ability to do cricothyrotomy. And then I can change the title later on and say that this is about use of simulation in cricothyrotomy. So you can change sometimes so that it looks different. Okay, so now let's talk about portfolios. Some universities require them and some don't. And some are very specific. There are differences in the portfolio depending on the track that you're seeking promotion. And we just had some discussions about that: research, clinical, teaching, tenure. And most of the same rules, however, do apply in terms of how you put the portfolio together. It's just what you're stressing that's different. Again, conform to the format that your university uses, even if you don't like it. And even if you have to completely rewrite your portfolio, conform to the way they like it, because just like with a manuscript, if you don't conform to the author instructions, they will toss it. They will toss your portfolio if you do not conform. And again, just like with your CV, ask to look at the portfolios of people who were most recently promoted to the rank that you seek. Those have been reviewed by the current P&T committee. It should be within your department and also some other departments that are within the same domain. So you're not going to want to look at a basic science portfolio if you're clinical. And even surgical specialties versus medical specialties, right? So if I'm putting together a portfolio and I'm a vascular surgeon, I may want to look at stuff that, came from a trauma surgeon. May want to look at stuff that came from a neurosurgeon, but I'm not going to want to look at stuff that came from somebody who's in PM&R, because that's completely unrelated. And what's valued in that field is different from what's valued in another field. So keep that in mind. Ask someone who holds your desired rank again and is prominent in the university to review your portfolio with you. Same advice: sit down and do it in person so that they're going through it line by line and giving you feedback line by line. Schedule a meeting with someone who was promoted to the rank you seek during the most recent promotion cycle. Same advice. If your department has an editor, use that editor. And if they don't, and you are not the primary English speaker, get someone you trust who will help you with that. Keep your portfolio current, even more work than the CV sometimes, because sometimes that involves bedside teaching exercises, that involves going to a conference on resident evaluations. So this can even be more work, but these are things you are also more likely to forget. So you want to definitely do it. Your portfolio is going to duplicate some of the aspects of your CV, but your portfolio is also going to be more in depth. So for example, if I may have on my list that I mentor these particular medical students, or I mentor these particular residents in my program, my portfolio is going to go into deeper detail about what I do when I mentor them, that I have individual mentorship meetings with them, that I have group mentorship meetings where I talk to them about how to give a presentation, that I accompany them to a conference to support them and help answer questions while they're giving a presentation. So your portfolio takes a deeper dive into what you do, and yes, it will duplicate some of your CV. Again, get credit for everything. This is something Dr. Romero commented on. You must do this. You have to do advertisement for yourself. And one of the sessions that I listened to earlier today, the presenter talked about how it is part of our culture. We're taught to be humble. We're not supposed to brag about ourselves, especialmente mujeres. We are supposed to be suffering, sacrificing, humble people who do not tell you how wonderful we are. And as the previous speaker said, you have to get up there and tell people how wonderful you are. I guarantee if you pay attention and look at the way white men advertise for themselves, it is shocking. If a white man is a Cub Scout leader for his son, he will go in and tell people, yes, I have experience in national organizations. You are a freaking Cub Scout leader. Okay, but they will not say I was a Cub Scout leader. They're going to go in there and say, I was an organizer for a national organization. We must learn to do this. We must learn to maximize every piece of work that we do. We must learn to advertise for ourselves. I am wonderful. I am talented. I am brilliant. I am an asset to your department. And it is going to look good for you to promote me. And that's something that you have to convince your chair of. The sheer number of upper level faculty positions proves that your chair is a great mentor, and you have to tell him that. So promoting me makes you look good, because every full professor you have in your department, every person who's come up through the ranks in your department shows that you are an amazing chair and an amazing mentor. So let's get me promoted. Let's get me up there and play the diversity card. I'm sorry. I have no patience with these say, oh, you played the race card. Oh, you played the ethnicity card. So what? So what? White people have been doing this for generations. They have the old boys club. They have the pale males that are all sticking together to help each other. This is our time right now. Even if people don't believe it, the government is saying you have got to have diversity, and you have got to acknowledge the importance of diversity. Our patients are standing up and saying, I want a doctor that looks like me. I want a doctor that speaks Spanish. I want a doctor that understands my culture. I want a doctor who cares whether I have the money to fill my prescription or not. I want a doctor who cares how I'm getting home from the hospital at 2:00 in the morning with my 2 babies. So these are the kinds of things that you have to say. I bring to the department a perspective that other people in the department do not bring and do not have. You have to say that. And you have to stress the fact that you can teach things that other faculty cannot teach, because you have lived things that other faculty cannot live. Your value to that department is incredibly powerful right now, and you have to capitalize on that. Then I would tell you, have a plan. To me, my success had to do with having a 10-year plan. I broke it down year by year, each thing that I had to do, how many papers I had to publish, how many grants I had to get in order to meet the requirements for promotion in my university. And I checked it every 6 months. And sometimes I change things around. Like if it worked out for me that I got on a couple writing teams and I published more papers in that 6-month period, but I didn't get any grants, okay, I would cut myself some slack. I'm ahead now on publications, but I'm behind on grants. So for the next 6 months, I won't focus so much on publications. I need to write a couple of grants with the understanding that usually 50% of our grants get approved and 50% are rejected. So I calculate how many I have to do. But you must keep reevaluating yourself, and you must stick to your work plan so that you can get to where you want to go. It's no different than, you get in a car and you're going to have to go turn here, listen to Google Maps, listen to, whoever it is that talks to you to get you from one place to the next. Your career is the same thing. To get from one place to the next, you have got to do a certain number of steps in a certain order and a certain way, and you have to hold yourself to it. This is your life. This is your career. Invest in it. Okay, read your university's promotion policy guidelines. That is how you are going to make your tenure plan, which you're going to reevaluate every 6 months. Check for periodic updates, because they maybe you don't recognize, they send it out in some mass email, it goes into your spam. Make sure that you have followed the periodic updates. Make note of the time frame. This is critical. Some universities have an up or out policy. I personally know somebody who was let go because she did not pay attention to the up or out policy. She had to apply for promotion within 7 years, or she was going to lose her job. She didn't pay attention. Her chair didn't tell her. The 7 years came up. She didn't have time to put together a packet. And so she was let go. And she was a very good surgeon, very good doctor. But this can happen. Again, take responsibility. Yes, other people should be looking at this for you. Yes, your chair should be looking at it. Yes, your faculty development person should be looking at it. But you know what? Who gets impacted in the end? It's you. So make sure that you are following, if you have an up or out policy, that you know what that time frame is. Also, what stops your clock? What stops your clock, if you have a 7 years up or out, which is the 7 years is the most common, what can stop your clock? So in some places, nothing can stop your clock. But in plenty of places nowadays, having a baby stops your clock. Sometimes for 6 months, sometimes for 2 years. The death of a parent, that can stop your clock. Sometimes for 6 weeks, sometimes for 6 months. You have to know the policies. And the minute something happens to you, you get pregnant, check that childbirth. What stops my clock? You have a sick family member, look at what stops your clock so that you know.
Can you comment a little bit more on this, Dr. Moreno? What does it mean when we say stop the clock? Because it's not like we're taking a leave of absence, but what happens to the work that you do complete and the achievements that you still manage to get in during these periods?
Great question. So all of your achievements still count. All of your achievements count. It's just when your clock is stopped, time is added on at the far end, at the distal end. So if I have 7 years for up or out, from assistant professor to associate professor, so I have from 2014 to 2021. But if I had a baby during that period and my institution stops my clock for a year, then my distal time frame goes from 2021 to 2022. So now I have extra time. However, any work that I do during that time, that still counts for me. So if I have a baby and I decide that I'm going to make good use of that time, and while I'm home nursing my baby, I'm also sitting at my computer writing up a couple of, as you pointed out, Dr. Romero, a couple of abstracts that I never wrote into a manuscript yet, but I'm going to do that while I'm on maternity leave, then that still counts. That still counts. But the stopping the clock just adds extra time that you have to apply for promotion. So Again, communicate with the people who are responsible for the stop the clock, because you don't want to go back later and say to them, I thought that I was getting this time because I was caring for my dying aunt, but you said you're only going to give it to me if it was my mother. So you need to know, and trust me, when you are mourning or when you are caring for somebody, it's very hard to think about these other things. So you have to make a point to do it. You have to make a point. I've been in that position. I lost my husband 7 years ago, and I can tell you that you think you're going to be functioning really well, but you're not. And so it is important for you to insist to yourself that you keep tabs on all of these things. So pursue and achieve promotion. Generally speaking, you will be expected to have a regional reputation for promotion to assistant, a national prominence for promotion to associate, and international prominence for promotion to professor. Make sure people know who you are. How are you going to have prominence if people don't know who you are? You've got to get your name out there. And again, that's very hard for us. And it's very hard. I remember getting advised early in my career, and literally one of the a mature woman who was a full professor who was mentoring me said, well, obviously you're keeping it a great secret that you want to be promoted. Yeah, I wanted it so badly, but I wasn't telling people, and I wasn't letting people know, who I am. Volunteer around your institution. Make sure people know your name. Find out what committees the members of the P&T committee are on. Get on those committees. Make sure they know you. This is when you're trying to go for assistant, when you have to have a local reputation. Those are the kinds of things that you need to start to do. Then you need to start getting involved in regional, national, and international organizations. LMSA is a perfect way to get started. National Hispanic Medical Association, your medical specialty society, but get involved, don't just be a member. Because people who just sign their names up to be on committees, other people look at them and say, that person just wants to pad their CV. They don't do anything. They just put their name down to join everything. Get involved. Make sure that people hear your ideas, hear your thoughts, see how hard you work. Join committees and task forces. A lot of times I've gotten many papers that I've written that were written because I was part of a task force that had to look at something, and then we wrote a paper about it, and I got to work with some incredibly top-level people in my specialty because I signed up for those task forces, and I worked hard, and some of the people chairing them were like editors. They were full professors. They were tenured professors. They were presidents of organizations. Be bold in introducing yourself to people with power. Now, I can't stress this enough. Now that I am a person with power, I have noticed how terribly we've suffered because of COVID. Whereas at conferences, I would notice someone would take a step towards me and then hesitate, and I could then reach out to them and say, hi, I'm Lisa Moreno. I'm the president of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. Who are you? Whatever, but we can't do that with COVID. So we've lost a lot, and junior people have lost a lot of opportunities. You've got to be bolder. You've got to be bolder. We really care about you guys. I listened to Dr. Velez saying earlier that we are here to help you, and I echo that. We all echo that. We are here to help you. We benefit from mentoring. Mentoring makes us feel good. Mentoring satisfies a need that we have to nurture. Mentoring makes us feel that we are paying it forward. Mentoring makes us feel that we are ensuring our own immortality by helping the people who will step in to our places when we retire. Don't think that we're doing you a massive favor. It's a two-way street. We like to mentor. Introduce yourselves to us. Tell us who you are. We get tremendous pleasure out of helping you to advance. So, like I said, most professors with national renown, we like to mentor. Busy people are happy to have you do the first draft. I love this. Seriously, I love this. When my students and my residents ask me to help them with a research project, I let them write the first draft of the paper. Okay, fine. When I finish writing the final draft, it's, 50% of it is not what they wrote, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They got that experience, and it made it easier. for me to deal with the manuscript when somebody's already written something. I tell my children this, it's always no until it's yes. The answer is always no if you do not ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. The answer stays no. The answer is no now. If you ask me, if you ask Dr. Romero, if you ask Dr. Velez, if you ask Dr. Sanchez, and you get a no, you're no worse off than you were before. And you're probably not going to get a no. You will get to yes, but you must ask because we don't know what your dreams are. And this is something that I tell people very frequently. I say this at least once a week. Now that I'm the president of a national organization and I am a full professor, my job is making other people's dreams come true. That is my job. I've already gotten to the top of my profession. My job is to get you to the top of your profession and to make your dreams come true. If I make your dreams come true, I am supplying quality physicians to our community. I am supplying quality researchers to the field of medicine. So I get a lot out of it too. We all get a lot out of it. Ask. Make a list of your letter writers at least 18 months in advance and have the full number and 2 alternatives. Unfortunately, sometimes people will tell you, it happened to me. One of my letter writers, his wife went into the hospital. He couldn't write for me. So have alternatives. Cultivate a deeper relationship with them over the subsequent months. Call them, talk to them on the phone, invite them to lunch, hang out with them at conferences so that they really get to know who you are. Part of what gives us passion when we write your letter is if we feel your passion. So if you convey to me your passion and your enthusiasm, I'm going to write a better letter. 12 months ahead, announce that you're going to be asking them for a letter, and then give them at least 2 months' notice that your university will be asking them to referee your promotion package. Offer to draft the letter. I will tell you, most of the letters I write nowadays, my assistant meets with the person who I'm writing the letter for, and they put together a set of bullet points of highlights of that person's career that match the promotion criteria. My assistant makes sure that it matches the promotion criteria that the university gave us, and then it's very easy for me to write the letter. And so I can write a lot more of them because it literally takes me an hour to write a letter at the most, because I'm being helped by the people that are asking for the letters. And I've trained my assistants to know how to match things up, how to look at what the criteria are. So all of that is very important. Make it easy for other people to help you. Maximize your research activities. Did you mentor a more junior person in the course of conducting the research? So maybe a junior person, did an abstract presentation, but you helped them along the way. You mentored a medical student or you mentored a pre-med student. Submit your abstracts to regional, national, and international venues. Most international venues will let you present something that was presented in a national meeting. Most nationals will let you present something that was at a regional meeting. So again, Dr. Romero gave excellent advice in the beginning. You have to make things count for more than one. You did the research, you write the abstract, you can present the abstract in a regional, a national, and an international venue. Then did the research grow out of a quality assurance inquiry, a task force, or an assessment that you did? So you can actually take work that you have done for quality assurance and turn that into a research project. You can have a task force. We had a task force where we were looking at the quality, which is very germane. We were looking at the quality of the translator phones and how accurately they were actually doing translation for both Spanish and Vietnamese patients, how the patients were satisfied with the use of the translator phone. We're going to turn this into a paper that we're going to write. Why not? Why would you not do that? Make things count for more than one. And really critical to turn your abstracts into manuscripts. This is where people fall off. People are pretty darn good at getting the abstracts submitted and doing those presentations, but then they don't get the manuscripts written. Literally only about 10 to 20% of abstract presentations end up getting published. And so you have to have a plan. I call it a trifecta publication plan. Number one, what is my greatest fantasy that I would love? If I could have any publication in the world publish this, what would that be? And I submit to them first. Because you know what? Even if they reject you, those publications, the Lancet, JAMA, those publications, the New England Journal, they give you nice critique back. They put time into the critique after they reject you. And you don't know, you may get accepted. I had a friend who got something accepted into JAMA, and she didn't think it was that good. So after they published, after it was in print, she said to them, I didn't think that was so good. Tell me why you published it. And it was for JAMA Images. And she had a really good fundoscopic picture of retinal detachment. But I mean, retinal detachment, it's pretty common. So she said, why did you publish it? And you know what the editor told her? We only had like 6 or 7 abstracts. We only had 6 or 7 manuscripts submitted in that category that month, and yours was the best. So you don't know, because you don't know their publication deadline. You don't know who else has submitted. You don't know what they're up against. So submit to the journal of your dreams, and you actually might get in. Then the other thing is then have a secondary journal. So if I don't get into the one of my dreams, what am I going to go to second? And then you have a default journal that you know will publish your paper no matter what. Your paper is definitely good enough to get into that journal. That's your default journal. Have that trifecta lined out immediately so that the second you get the rejection, you immediately turn around and submit to journal number 2. If you get a rejection, you immediately turn around and submit to journal number 3, because this is also where people fall off. They get a rejection, they get personally insulted, they take it like somebody said their baby was ugly, and they get all upset, and they don't submit to the next journal. So make sure you have this plan. This is how you're going to make sure that you get published. I've published in a lot of low index journals, and I know that some of the work that we've done, especially work I do with medical students, survey studies, things like that, that's not going to get into the New England Journal of Medicine. I mean, come on, we know this, but we want to get publications. We want to have publications on our CV. We want to get people promoted. I want my students to get into good residencies. I want my residents to get good jobs. And so go ahead, publish in a low index journal. So what? It's still peer-reviewed publication. Maximize your scut work. Titles matter. If you get asked to do something, I always say every task mandates a task force. If your chair asks you to do something, this particular job needs to be done, say, okay, can you appoint me chair of the task force that is going to be working on that? Because again, at a lower academic level, when you're moving from instructor to assistant professor, it matters that you can put down that you chair the task force. Even a social event like residency graduation party planning can become a task force activity. And I do that for my people in where I work. I'm like, okay, you are the faculty coordinator for the residency graduation party. This is the wellness task force. You are now the chair of the wellness task force, because part of wellness is having a nice graduation for the residents that have struggled for 4 years to meet all the requirements of the ACGME. So talk to your chairs, talk to your vice chairs, your leaders, and let them know if they ask you to do something, you want a title for it. You want an official task force formed, and you want to be the chair of that task force. You can't, say to them, as I said, can't this be a task force or subcommittee, or at least a working group? Volunteer to chair. Usually you just have to keep the minutes or notes, prepare a report, which you often give verbally, but this puts you in the spotlight. Retrospectively, go back and ask leaders, can I put that group I served on down on my CV as a task force? So when you're preparing, again, if you're preparing for your promotion packet, go back now. Go back and ask them. Say, remember when you asked me to chair the group that, did orientation for the new incoming interns? I would like to say that was the orientation task force and that I chaired it. Can I do that? And 99 times out of 100, your chair or your vice chair is going to say yes, because you did a task force work. And then try to get an abstract out of it. What kind of things did you do that to orient your new incoming residents. This year, it's critically important. Last year, it was critically important. We took students who had been out of clinical rotation because of COVID. They came in terrified. They hadn't seen a patient in 6 months, 8 months, a year. And we had to orient them to working with human beings and taking on that responsibility. How did you do that orientation? How did you get people comfortable with being around patients, with interacting with nurses? What did you do? How did it work? How did they feel? What parts of it did they think were the most helpful? Do a survey, ask them questions, publish it. DEI is a hot topic right now. Every department wants to prove they're doing their part. Focus your chair and dean on the importance of promoting BIPOC people. Wouldn't it look good for you? And I mean, seriously, I've had people say to me, and honestly, it's insulting and it's despicable, but people will say, oh, I get to check 2 boxes because you're Latinx and you're a woman. That is pretty despicable, but you know what? If it works, it works. If you're Latinx and you're LGBTQ, if you're Latinx, you're a Latina, whatever works for us, because we need to even the playing field. We are not part of the old boys club. We are not part of the group of people who, you know, when you read Gladwell's books and he says, when you blink, and when someone says the word doctor and you blink, what do you see? What do most people see? It's not us. It's not us. And so now we have to even the playing field, and we have to focus on the fact that I'm bringing something to your department that other people are not bringing. I am bringing a life experience. I am bringing a culture. I am bringing a language fluency. I am giving you something that other people in your department are not giving you. And this has value. This has as much value as somebody who has an MBA and is able to bring organization management skills to the department. I am able to bring cultural skills. I am able to bring a lifetime of experience. I am able to bring patient satisfaction. So highlight this, and then highlight how you being there and you being promoted will attract other people of color to come to work in this department and this medical school, which is what they want. Highlight your Latinx contributions. Mentoring. Every student you advise is a mentoring relationship. Put that on your CV. Put it down even if you're not that person's official mentor assigned by the medical school or by the residency. You are mentoring that person. You are helping them. Everything you do, you can spin. I hope I've gotten that across to you. Turn things into task forces. Make yourself the chairman of it. Everything you do, you can spin. It's early days, so people can get titles in DEI earlier than they did in their careers. The institution that I'm going to work at has a vice chair for diversity, equity, and inclusion for every single department, preclinical and clinical departments. Tell your chair, I want to be vice chair, or I want to be the director of the diversity division. I've lived it. It's my experience. I can do this, right? Why don't you create this position? It looks good externally. It looks good to the dean's office. It looks good to the federal government who are funding CMS and funding our residency programs. DEI is not a soft science. It is not a soft science. I will tell you from experience, I have seen people who are gay or lesbian who do not have the skills to educate people about how to take care of gay and lesbian patients because they're too angry or they alienate people or they don't know how to talk to people. I have seen Blacks, I have seen Latinx, I have seen brown people, I have seen people who are something, and that doesn't necessarily make them an expert at it. DEI is a hard science. There are courses out there. You can take the HEDIC course from the AAMC. It's a year-long certificate course. ACGME now has a year-long certificate course. Get your chair to pay for you to take that course. If they won't, consider paying for it yourself. This is an investment in your career. This is an investment in your life. This is an investment in your ability to serve our community. So it is well worth it. I took the HEDIC course probably about, 7-8 years ago. And I can tell you that I learned a lot. What you learn is how to bring the content to people in a way that they can accept it. What you learn is how to teach diversity concepts to non-diverse populations in a way that they can hear it and in a way that they become empowered to be allies. This is very valuable information. And again, not just anybody can do this work, and highlight that. You are bringing something very unique. You have lived it. You understand the culture. You are trusted by the patients. You can do this work in a way that no one else can. Highlighting your Latinx contributions, community engagement is huge. Have you spoken at your child's school, right? We all hear that. If you can see it, you can be it. So our kids need to see people that look like them. If you've spoken at your child's school, if you've done an activity at your church or your mosque, go forth and organize a health fair for your church or mosque or child's school or community center. Put up posters in barbershops, hair and nail salons about things that you're doing. Our HIV testing program, we made tremendous use of that. We put posters up with people of color in them who are known in the community, who had cred in the community, for people to get tested. And it worked. Offer to speak at a PTA or on a local radio talk show about COVID, about hypertension, about diabetes, about health maintenance that affects the Latinx population. Make sure to mention your hospital and the important things your hospital is doing. I can tell you, when I go on the radio, my hospital loves it when they hear the broadcast or the recording of it and they see that I've mentioned them. Make sure you get the link, give it to your chair, and give it to your dean so that they will play it and listen and hear what you said. Again, advertisements for yourself. You must advertise for yourself. I did this. That was something that I learned from the AAMC when I took the minority faculty development course. I remember walking down the hall, seeing the dean in the hall, and the dean said, "How are you, Lisa?" And I said, "Great, Dr. Nelson." And then I stopped and I pivoted because I remembered what I had been taught by the AAMC minority faculty development course. I stopped, I pivoted, I said, "Dr. Nelson, in fact, I'm doing fantastically well because I just found out 3 days ago that a grant application I submitted was approved." Dr. Nelson stopped and said to me, "Tell me more about that. What was the grant about? How much was it for?" The dean was getting to know me. Advertisements for yourself, very important. So the take-home points. Preparation is the key to everything in medicine, and in fact, everything in science. So make everything you do count for something that will get you promoted. Make sure that leaders know that promotion of people of diverse backgrounds is in everyone's best interest. And keep focused. I love the Mamba Philosophy. I am a big Kobe fan. And this is something that I think has stimulated me to become who I've become, and I hope it will stimulate you as well. One of the things he said is, when you make a choice and say, come hell or high water, I am going to be this, then you should not be surprised when you are that. It should not be something that feels intoxicating or out of character, because you have seen this moment for so long that when it comes, of course it is here, because it has been here the whole time, because it has been in your mind the whole time. I tell my children this, and I'm telling you this too. The universe has greatness for you. The universe has greatness. You just have to walk towards it. And you have to believe it's there, walk towards it in a strategic way, and you will get it. You will get it, because we are a great people. We are a great culture. We have amazing things to offer to this country and the world, and you are an essential piece of that. And if you don't do what you were put on this earth to do, we are all going to suffer for that. So go forth and do what you were put on this earth to do, and be great, because you are great and you see it now, and it is there in the universe. And we are all here to help you. Feel free to get in touch with me, get in touch with Dr. Romero, Dr. Sanchez, Dr. Velez, get in touch with any of us, all of us. We are here to help you achieve your greatness. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moreno. This was a really fantastic presentation, and I want to give an opportunity. There was a question that did come up. Dr. Fernandez, do you want to ask live since you have the podium, so to speak, the virtual podium?
Sure. I'm over here clapping because this was just phenomenal. Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Dr. Moreno. My question was around the CV, a comment you made earlier about the format of the CV at your institution and just how challenging it is. My institution has a challenging format as well. And I found for some small foundation grant applications that I've been working on, or applications to attend conferences, that they're asking for a CV specifically, not a bio sketch. And I feel like the CV that I have for my institution is just too much, and they're not going to understand any of it. So I was curious if there's another format that you recommend we kind of have in our back pocket that we can use when it comes to more of a publicly facing CV for these kinds of situations, small grant application, small foundation funding where they want a CV, but our institution CV is just, it's not going to cut it. It's too long, it's too clunky, it's too crazy.
I feel you. I 100% agree. And so, for example, I have 3 different bio sketches, depending on how long they're going to be. And I do have a truncated abbreviated CV. And that is something that I agree. You should have a truncated CV. And there's a couple ways to do it. Some ways are to leave out things that you don't think that other institutions necessarily care about. So, for example, like I'm a member of 8 or 9 medical societies. They may not care that you're just a member of those things. So you can leave out some of that sort of stuff that isn't that important. The other thing you might consider doing is saying, for example, under presentations, I've given 452 national presentations, the highlights of which are, and then just put the ones that are related to that grant that you are presenting. And so to do that is definitely a good idea. You might want to, again, work with somebody who has a truncated or abbreviated CV and see how they did theirs. Occasionally, I'll alter my truncated CV to target the grant that I'm focusing on. I recently did a grant for a domestic violence project, and though I've done a lot of violence prevention work, a lot of it has to do more with trauma, with penetrating trauma. And so for this, I kind of highlighted specifically things that I thought that they would be interested in. And again, you can say, like, under the heading of publications, you can say I have, 68 publications. The following are relevant to domestic violence, something like that. But it's true, because people aren't going to read through, trillions of pages of stuff, and they don't actually care which medical societies you're a member of or what committees you're on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that great advice, Dr. Moreno, and an excellent question. So I really want to thank everyone for your time and participation today. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and the Líderes program. Congratulations to LMSA on your 50th anniversary.
Yes, and I was an LMSA member when I was a medical student. So LMSA really does help you and support you.
Absolutely. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye, everyone.